Welcome to the ChargeTronix booth here at the EV Charging Summit. We're going to meet with them, learn about all of their vast array of charging options from level 2 all the way up to some very powerful CCS and NACS chargers. I'm Patrick Anderson. This is the Mach-E vlog. Let's go. Okay, let me introduce you to Stephen Israel. You're with ChargeTronix. You want to talk about yourself and introduce ChargeTronix to us, first of all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. Stephen Israel, I'm the VP of Operations for ChargeTronix. Been with the company for a bit over a year now, but I've been in the EV charging space for over 15 years. I was with a large CPO, which many of you probably have charged at many times for about 9 years. And then with been in the hardware space building EVSEs for about the last 7. So, yeah.
And now we're here at the EV Charging Summit. We're at this booth. There's a lot of stuff that you guys have on display. So why don't we walk through, you can show us, we can talk about this, we can talk about the EV industry in general, but let's start with your level 2 and dive right in.
Cool, we'll talk about the product and some of the cool stuff that's happening in the industry as a whole. So we've got a wide breadth of product. It starts with, our AC product on the lower power levels. Everything from a product here, which is our 32 to 48 amp, single cable, really nice. The way the industry has kind of gone is everything's going to kind of a remove and replace kind of scheme.
Right.
So instead of servicing it in the field, if there's a problem, there's things that you can service like the cable only. So if there's a runover or a vandalism issue, but related to the electronics inside, the contactors, things that in the past people used to replace, you just really ship it back, we'll refurbish it, and we'll send something to the field, a warm swap. They're nice, they're wall mounted. We have a really cool kind of option, which there's a couple others out there, like a pedestal with retraction systems. You can do side by side, back to back. So it has a wide variety of kind of applications kind of in the parking field as well with retraction. And then over here we have a product that goes up to the max of what J1772 standard is, which is our 80 amp.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of vehicles don't charge at 80 amp today, right? So having an 80 amp charger is great for like a fleet application where you have like an F-150 or a Chevy Silverado, or even some of like the last mile delivery vehicles that are out there where they're doing at 80 amp. But you kind of in a lot of public spaces, you might want that capability, but you don't want to dedicate the infrastructure, the asset to that.
Yeah.
So what we have is we've got a mix in this product. We've got an 80 amp product that does sole 80, single cable output, J1772. Again, all these cables, all these also come in NACS as well, or J3400 also. And then what we have is we also have our dual output unit, and this comes in 2 versions. You can have it be a dual 40 amp, or you can have it be a dual 80 amp. The dual 80 amp is not simultaneous 80 amps. Now that's the beauty, right? You bring a single circuit in, and then if one car is connected, it can go up to 80 amps. The other car would be 0 or vice versa, but if 2 cars are connected, it goes 40-40. So you're really, you bring in 100 amp circuit and you're able to connect 2 vehicles simultaneously, or one at the max of J1772.
And it seems like with the level 2, and it looks like we'll get to the other stuff and it'd be the same thing, but it's like you're trying to provide options. So like if depending on the right use, you can pick a different scenario of stuff putting in.
It's a great point. I think that, through my experience in this industry, you kind of have to consultative like sell, and help your customers, right? Or your customers' customers, right? So, a lot of other vendors, they'll have a very narrow kind of bandwidth. It's like, I have only all-in-ones or I have only distributed systems. And we're trying not to put a round peg into a square hole, right?
Right.
There's applications where one kind of thing works better than the other.
Yeah.
So we have a wide breadth of product that just allows us to kind of like, understand what our customers' needs are and then fit to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's the main thing is like, for when you're trying to put these in, you don't want to put in an 80 amp if this is all you need, because it's a waste of money.
Absolutely. Well, it's not just even so much the charger, it's the infrastructure, right?
Right.
You got to think, you have a transformer upstream, you've got, that may even be from a 480 to a 208 or 240 transformer. Right. You've got the switch gear, you've got this is the cheap part when it comes to actually the infrastructure on level 2, honestly. So, so you got to think a lot of what your loading capacity is upstream, and then the charger is just that end point, that customer interface piece,
It's funny because like we see a lot of consumers, that interact with our channel, and they're worried about the charger costs that they're buying off of Amazon, and whether they're going to, you know, save $100. I'm like, that's minor compared to the, you know, do you need a new panel? Do you need
absolutely
tearing up a bunch of drywall? I mean,
how far is the run going to be? All that kind of stuff. Absolutely. You know, but especially when you get into the commercial space where you have to do, you know, more infrastructure and generally longer poles, this is like, you know, a smaller drop in the bucket relative. But very important for the customer interface, for the ongoing sustaining or the operations capabilities, the communication up. I mean, everything here is using OCPP. We're 1.6J, 2.0.1, CTEP, NTEP. So, you know, you'll see something consistent with all of our products. We're really focused on the public-facing aspect of charging, not really behind the fence, though we do have some residential chargers that we do offer as well, but kind of more for our B2B customer also, right? But that means that we have CTEP, NTEP, all those other regulatory and compliance, Energy Star, everything to you know, enable the grant funding sources, but also just a better quality product, right?
So when people are getting the funding from whatever source, they can check off the boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes it easy for them. And it looks like, you know, even on these level 2, like you have a very clear interface, making things simple. Barcodes, I'm assuming that's sort of like
barcodes are so we are agnostic to back-end CPOs, right? So what we do is we provide the hardware, right? And our customers use these as part of their infrastructure piece. So you know, there's certain aspects to the screens that can be customized, like the phone number, like the QR codes, things like that, that they can add and they can over-the-air update. So they can use the QR code for different aspects. Like if they had a web-based charging startup that wasn't really an app-based, they could direct you straight to that web-based application where you could do Apple Pay. If you had, you know, a known application and you wanted to QR scan for the serial number so that you could find the asset to remote start, you could do it there as well, right? So many different purposes that are here, and flexibility is the main purpose on our side.
Yeah, I like it. Should we move on to something bigger?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into kind of a mix of the DC side. We have a couple different DC products. So kind of what you see here is you see V2X, right? So in the same housing on a couple of these products on our Gen 2 line, we've got V2G or V2X products. This housing does two things. It's actually a 20 kilowatt housing, but it's also a 20 kilowatt V2G, but it's also a 30 kilowatt all-in-one. So same housing, different applications, but it's a DC product. You can wall mount it to the side, AC, you know, 3-phase, 480 input, and you can charge cars. The V2G side, which we could talk about real quickly, is really nice in a lot of commercial applications. Where it's really starting is really on the bus market, right?
Yeah, we've been hearing that.
Side. And that's because there's a couple different things that are really important there, right? You have a limited number of vehicle sets, right? Because you have about 3 to 4 OEMs that are actually there, so the interoperability is kind of limited with some of the newer standards, and those assets have a long dwell period, so they're at those stations for a long period of time. You know, during the summer, all the time, right? And even during the school year, they're not driving around very often, right? So they're really close to like a static battery energy storage load, so they're predictable, right? So that's kind of where the market's kind of starting with the V2X, and really like widespread implementation is kind of on the school bus side.
I'm excited by that. I've read some stories where school districts are literally like turning energy into an asset because they can sell it back to the power companies during peak time when the bus is just going to sit there idle. And they've been charging during the day, maybe using solar or even just overnight, like when the rates are cheap for them.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, there's grants out there that are pushing toward a green kind of mobility for our kids and, you know, our future. And then also, but yeah, the vehicles are generally more expensive, right? So they're looking at different avenues to offset those costs with other revenue sources like what you're talking about.
And that's something else we were talking about, because like everybody's excited by V2G and they're like, when is it coming, you know, to like consumers? And it's really hard, like when you're talking about return on investment. We don't like buy stuff as a consumer and looking at return on investment. But like when you're a business or you're a school district or, you know, municipality, you can sort of like plug in the numbers and go like, wow, this will pay off in 2.3 years or 5.7 years, and it just makes dollar sense.
The business case is what really makes sense, right? You can have grants or outside investment that are kind of putting in some funding, but at long term, it's got to make financial sense to be sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So I was even watching a keynote yesterday that was from one of the FedEx chief engineers, and he said, that over a 10-year, they don't look at things of when's the return on investment kind of, inflection point, but they said that between diesel and electrification, actually they're seeing a 50% cost of the diesel over a 10-year lifespan of the vehicle, which is great, right? That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we've been expecting with this, with lower maintenance costs for the overall, vehicles themselves and the drivers, lower cost when you kind of have, for the power consumption relative to gas, right? Then that's exactly what we're expecting across the industry.
Very cool. All right, I'll let you lead to the next area that we're going to hit.
So, we'll touch on our Gen 3 product. So this is new to market. What we have here is a couple different things. This is our 160 kilowatt housing. It goes anywhere from 160 down to 60 kilowatts. It's got 40 kilowatt silicon carbide, high efficiency power modules inside of it. The high efficiency is good for a couple of reasons. One, you're using less power to make to turn it into DC, but also the other thing is the noise generally comes down. So as things get more efficient, they get quieter.
Right.
When things get quieter, they also move less air. When things move less air, then there's less pollution in the filters and there's less pollution inside of the charger.
Because most of when we say inefficiency, is usually excess heat.
It's always heat, or generally, right? Yeah. So this charger goes up to, we have multiple options for NACS, right? And CCS. We also have, you can get NACS, CCS. Yeah. The charging cable goes up to 400 amp max current, so you can get the full 160 kilowatts even on the 400 volt vehicles, right?
Yes.
Because that's what current matters just as much as power. Realistically.
Yeah, we've mentioned that several times on our channel. We've run into issues where it's a 200 kilowatt charger, but they have a 200 amp cable. Yeah. And you're frustrated. The customer's frustrated
because you're not getting what's published on it, and unless you have a high voltage vehicle, right? But if you have a known application like that, then it's great. Then you can actually make it a smaller cable, cheaper cable, lighter cable, right?
So you said this is your new generation. Are these deploying yet? Yeah,
deploying out there. They've been throughout the United States, throughout also in Europe as well. They come with multiple credit card options, but you could see like one of our key accounts that we work with here. Yeah. The other thing that we're kind of really excited about and that our customers are excited about is that we have advertisement, but it's not really, you can use it for two different ways, right? One, it's a smaller screen, so not a high cost of like a 32-inch kind of. Right. But we're talking to customers about actually using it for kind of doing instruction, right? Like how-tos, right? Because you get a lot of consumers that come up to these and they're just not as familiar with maybe the network, not as familiar with charging, not as familiar with it. So you can do more of a how-to. Where do you go to actually get the app? How do you start charging? Yeah. How do you do these things to kind of make it a better customer experience, right? So the top section of ours is made for that, and the bottom section is for our user interface.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's simple, but it's like you just plug in and charge, but it is like, do I pay first? Do I plug in first? Do I plug, and it's not really complicated, but it's just like, it's helpful to have that added help.
Yeah, I mean, the industry's come a long way from where it was 15 years ago when I started. But the analogy I used to use is like, when you're a kid, your father or mother kind of taught you how to pump gas. You're like, can I do it, right? And so you kind of like went through those exercises of how to do it. Nobody's kind of like taught you how to charge your car. But it's a more intuitive process overall, but it's still something that you just haven't done before sometimes, right?
I mean, the simplest thing is brushing your teeth is simple, but you did have to learn at some point in your life.
Very true, exactly.
All right.
Okay, and then, so this product also comes in 240 kilowatt variant as well. So a little bit bigger housing, couple board power modules, but same kind of general architecture. Right. Okay. And then we'll go over to this side and we'll show you kind of the distributed system. So,
nice.
So what we've got is a couple different products, which you see here. So a distributed system is really a modular system, right? So you have a couple different building blocks that you can put together however you want. Here we have our 480 kilowatt power cabinet. It comes in different power levels. It's got 12 of those 40 kilowatt power modules in it. And this can power 6 vehicles simultaneously, okay? Nice. So you can do that in a couple different ways. You can do 3 of the dispensers with 2 ports, or you can do 6 dispensers with 1 port.
Okay.
Right? And it's kind of for different applications like fleet, they may be more conscious about the reach, cable reach versus public, where you want to kind of be more efficient with your space.
Right.
So then we also have our distributed system dispensers. So like we said, these come in CCS, NACS, CCS, CCS, and vice versa. Multiple credit card options, and they also come with liquid cooling, as well as air cooled. So if you want to get to if you want to reach those peaks of above 500 amps and sustain the 500 amps, or if you want to be able to peak and then drop down to the 350 amps for the.
And of course, on all of these, we have like cable management to make it nice and easy.
And we have a couple different options for cable management. We have what you see at the show here, and then we also have the gantry arm style as well, right? Yeah. So there's some advantages to both, right? But the arms are generally a bit more reliable because they don't have the cable cord, right? Which can get either vandalized or cut. But the cords generally have longer reaches also, because you have some kind of geometry challenges when you have the arms.
So, and it seems like, again, this is providing flexibility, whatever people wanted to put it in the dispenser as well as the distribution block. But it sounds like it also, like some site locations, this might be way easier to like tuck this out of the way and have your dispensers.
Absolutely. So the advantages to like an all-in-one system, if you're going to do a small station, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, up to maybe even 8 chargers, right? Could be cheaper for an all-in-one. You're buying one piece of equipment, you've got one footing. It's all that additional cost that comes into play too. For a distributed system, you're able to utilize the power a bit more effectively, kind of like a diversity factor is what the industry term is. So you can use your power input across multiple outputs more effectively, but then you also have a smaller footprint in the parking space. So there's a lot of, as you put in infrastructure, there's a lot of conscious decisions that you're making, parking counts, am I removing parking? Is there ADA compliance requirements, XYZ? So these stations you can tuck this away, like you said, and bring this a little bit closer, but there is potentially some cost impacts for those too.
Yeah, and I would guess the other thing is like when you're sharing the power from one distribution block, you can sort of balance things out a little bit better. So, you may not be able to charge everybody at the very top speed if you had like 8 cars plug in at the same time. But that's really not going to happen. It's going to be
it will, right? I mean, you're going to start seeing utilizations that are really good right now. I mean, like in the 60s, 70s, percent.
Around here in Vegas,
they're really high. So, but what you can do is, you kind of need to tailor. It's a building block, right? So I said it could go up to 6. You don't have to do 6, right? You could do 2. You could do 4, you could do 3, right? So you can have that minimum power level shared across be a derivative of whatever the 480 kilowatts. And in the technology that we're using, we can increment everything in 40 kilowatt increments across all outputs. So if you're charging 6 vehicles, it's 80 kilowatts. If you're charging 1 vehicle, it's 480, and you can split it in 40 kilowatt increments in any way you'd like from there.
Now, you were talking about like this is better for your bigger sites more than 4. Do you find that like customers, the CPOs are now looking at doing bigger sites? Because I think that's been one of the gripes is like a lot of CCS sites have generally been 4 and under, and then we see the Tesla superchargers that have like 24 stalls. Do you see like CCS providers, or I mean they're switching to NACS too, but like do you see people like starting to look at bigger sites?
I think there's multiple different approaches. I think that the way that I look at it is there's the psychology as a consumer, right?
Right.
You want to go someplace where you're going to be able to get power, right? Yeah. And that's from I have more options, so there's more reliability just in case one's down. There's also, more options so that if somebody's charging, that somebody's not going to be charging there really quickly. So I think the larger sites kind of generally get a little bit better, higher utilization, and have a better customer experience. So we are starting to see that more and more throughout the industry, but real estate, power, where you want to land things also does come into play.
Right. And the other big buzzword that we've mentioned before as well is plug and charge. Everybody keeps talking about plug and charge. A couple of vehicles have it. A couple of providers have the plug and charge option. Do you see that as like something that the industry will get better at this year, next year?
Absolutely. I mean, plug and charge has been out for some time now. I mean, some of the networks that I've got a lot of experience with have been doing this for years, right? It's it's coming. It's happening right now. There's more vehicles that are opening it up. The PKI integration between everybody is happening. The chargers are all capable of doing it. There are commercial agreements that need to happen between the CPO and the EV manufacturer OEM for those plug and charge kind of applications to also occur. So those are some of the things that are coming to play when it comes to actually execution
and a lot
outside of just the technology.
Because it's like, this is something that I've learned, and I've come from an IT background.
Yep.
It was like the car can be plug and charge compliant, the station can be plug and charge compliant, but there's still a lot of testing that has to be done.
It's a whole ecosystem of execution. So there's a key transfer that's happening all the way across. So the vehicle's getting it from the OEM's back end. The OEM's back end's talking to the PKM. The PKM is talking to the CPO, CPO is talking to the charger, and charger's talking to the EVSEs, right? Yeah. So it's a whole string of communication, of alignment. So yeah, just because it's capable doesn't mean it works.
Yeah.
It's very network dependent, and it's very relationship with that EV OEM.
Yeah, as a consumer EV driver, it can be frustrating, but I understand as an IT guy, it's a very complex process. I hope that's like the news of the year next year, is that plug and charge becomes more and more widespread.
There's other options. Auto charge is another option that people are doing out there as well, which is less reliant on kind of key transfer happening. So there's other successful ways in which you can identify a vehicle and assign that to a known account, right? That are being used as well. Yeah,
and then that comes back to like more consumer education, because a friend of mine just sold his Mach-E and did not deregister it from EVgo. So the person that bought his car got a free first charge. And I actually did the same thing with my F-150 Lightning. Yeah. So yeah, same problem. Well, that happened actually with my plug and charge also. Oh yeah, with my F-150, well. Same exact thing. So you have to kind of, discontinue those. It's kind of, even the dealers are starting to get more aware of them. I remember I turned in my Model 3 and the dealer kind of asked me like, okay, you have to give me your account right now. Because it's really hard. I'm like, I didn't even think about that, right? Yeah. So, I think that, even on the transactional side, they're starting to become more aware. But yes, I've even made the same mistake with my own F-150 Lightning and my plug and charge account, right? That was with the Ford Blue Oval network, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I love seeing the wide array of products you guys have. Thank you for sharing all of this information. Hopefully you're having a great EV charging summit.
Absolutely, the show's been great and really excited, and thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, awesome, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.